that's how I became the world's first college professor of comic books.
But there's an even, I think, an even better story as to how you promoted the course.
Oh, I'm walking back to my apartment off campus, and all of a sudden the other half of my brain kicks in, and I can hear my mother inside my head going, Michael, you can have the greatest creative ideas in the world, but if you don't market yourself, if you don't market them, no one will ever know about it. So I got back to my apartment, thought about it, picked up the telephone, and I called United Press International in Indianapolis. Now, UPI was as big of a news syndicate as, Associated Press is today. And I got a reporter on the phone, and I started to scream at this man. What's wrong with you? You're supposed to be doing a job. You're not doing your job. You're not living up to your responsibility. This is terrible. He goes, calm down. What are you talking about? I said, I hear there's a course on comic books being taught at Indiana University. Are you telling me as a taxpayer in this state they're using my money to teach our kids comic books? This is outrageous. This has got to be a communist plot to subvert the youth of America. And I slammed down the phone. Well, it took this man 3 days to find out if there really was a course on comic books taught at IU, and if so, who was the lunatic teaching it. He showed up, he interviewed me. That interview went out, syndicated. It was with pictures a third of a page long, picked up by virtually every newspaper in North America and a whole bunch in Europe, and my phone started to ring. I was invited on every TV and radio talk show of the day. I never once had taught a comic book class that wasn't filled with newspaper reporters, magazine reporters, and television cameras. NBC Nightly News, the CBS Evening News, and this all went out. 2 weeks later, my telephone rings. Now, I'm a junior, okay, at Indiana. Is this Mike Uslan? I go, yeah. He goes, hiya, Mike, this is Stan Lee from Marvel Comics in New York City. Now, I call this my burning bush moment. Mike, everywhere I look, I'm seeing you on TV, I'm reading about you in the newspapers. What you're doing is great for the whole comic book industry. How can I help you? 2 hours later, my phone rings. It's the vice president of DC Comics in New York. Mr. Uslan, I've been reading about you in magazines. We were listening to you on the radio today. What you're doing is great for the whole comic book industry. We think you're an innovative young man. We'd like to fly you to New York City and discuss ways we can work together. Folks, that led to a job for me in New York. Summer job. They put me on retainer when I went back to Bloomington, and that led to my being in the right place at the right time, and I started writing the Shadow comic books, and then a dream I had since I was 8 years old came true, and I started writing Batman comics. It was an amazing dream come true, all going back to that one moment I stood my ground in the dean's office.
There's so much he has to talk about. I'm going to try to get a little. How did you get from there to Hollywood? You were in Hollywood in the 70s, which was like regarded now as like the golden age, and you were working at United Artists.
I was working at United Artists, yeah. Real quickly, I sent out 372 resumes to get a creative job in the movie industry when I was in my senior year of college. I didn't know anybody. I had no relatives in the business. My dad was a mason. My mom was a bookkeeper. I didn't come from money. I couldn't find my way into Hollywood. How do you get there from here? What do you do? How do you get your foot in the door? Especially when everyone tells me it's impossible. It's 372 resumes that I typed out the cover letters individually on my typewriter. Oh, for some of you, a typewriter is a box about this size. Next time you're at a museum, you really got to check it out. It's right next to the VCR.
An analog pager.
372 resumes, I got 2 job offers. Work in the mailroom of a major talent agency in New York City for $95 a week, or work for a producer in LA who was doing the big disaster movies of the day for $95 a week, starting by going for coffee and Xeroxing. Plan B, and always have a plan B and plan C, because you never know what life's going to bring you. And plan D, I went to law school. I thought maybe if I took every course having to do with communications and entertainment, Maybe I could then get a job on the legal, business, financial side of the movie industry, meet everybody, network, learn how you finance films and produce films, and then when no one's looking, sneak in the back door. Plan B worked. I got a job out of law school for United Artists. It was a major motion picture studio at the time. They put me in charge of the legal, business, and financial affairs of a whole bunch of movies that I learned so much. The first 3 Rocky pictures. Black Stallion, a little movie called Raging Bull. If you haven't seen it, go see it. And for 2.5 years of my life, a film called Apocalypse Now, which was a crisis every day of my life for 2.5 years. The greatest training in the world. I did that for 3.5 years as if it was graduate school. And at the end of that time, so I wouldn't be trapped being a lawyer for the rest of my life, I raised some money from people I knew, dentists, doctors, lawyers, found an amazing partner in Ben Melniker, who was my dad's age and had been a guy who was really running MGM during its Tiffany days. All divisions reported to Ben. Back then, he put together the deals for Ben-Hur, 2001, Dr. Zhivago, a real legend in the business. And on October 3rd, 1979, following a 6-month negotiation, bought the rights to Batman from DC Comics. Put it in my back pocket, and I quit my job. And I went out thinking, I am going to take Hollywood by storm. They are all going to line up on my doorstep when they hear my vision for Batman. What was my vision? My vision to do dark and serious Batman movies, true to the way they were created in 1939 by Bob Kane and Bill Finger as a creature of the night stalking criminals from the shadows. When did I get this dream? The night the Batman TV show premiered on ABC TV. I was very excited, couldn't wait for it to come on. It came on, and I was simultaneously thrilled and horrified by what I was seeing on TV. I was thrilled Batman was on TV, it was in color, the car was cool. I was horrified that the entire world was laughing at Batman. It just killed me. So that night, I made my own little young Bruce Wayne vow. Even though my parents were safe in the kitchen upstairs. And that's when I swore that one day, somehow, some way, I would find the means to erase from the collective consciousness of the world culture those 3 little words, pow, zap, and wham. And this was my chance to do it. I got out to Hollywood, and I was turned down by every single studio in Hollywood. They told me I stunk, my idea was terrible, it was the worst idea they ever heard. They all told me I was crazy. Michael, you don't make serious comic book movies. You don't do dark superheroes, and for God's sake, no one's ever made a movie based on an old television series. That's never been done. I thought it was going to be a slam dunk. What happened then was at that moment, it turned into a 10-year human endurance contest for me to try to get our first movie made. 10 years. Back against the wall. There were many days I did not know where my next dollar would come from. Everyone telling me I was crazy and it was a terrible idea. And I'll tell you something right now, and if any of you are filmmakers or thinking about it, or if any of you have a dream or a passion that you would like to fulfill someday, it tests your mettle. You gotta look inside your heart and soul and say, is everybody wrong, am I right? Do I so utterly believe in myself? Do I so utterly believe in my work that I'm willing to bear these consequences and keep it going? It's really an amazing experience to go through. Not a pleasant one, but an amazing one. And finally, when another genius, Tim Burton, we had 3 geniuses in the course of my career we dealt with. The wonderful, amazing Christopher Nolan, who has brought us the greatest Batman trilogy in history, and who has revolutionized comic book movies, genre movies, who's raised the bar for all movies of this genre. When you walk out of a Christopher Nolan movie, you don't have to say, that was a great comic book movie. You can say, that was a great film. Chris Nolan deserves all the credit for that. Tim Burton, working with Anton Furst, my dear friend who was our production designer and won the Oscar that year for his work on Batman. Tim had the vision. Anton understood it and went out and designed and created Batman's look for the picture. The Batmobile's look, the whole entire look of Gotham City was a creation from Anton. And it was truly amazing. Tim Burton knew that Gotham City had to be the 3rd most important character in the first movie because the first movie was so revolutionary. No one had ever done a dark, serious comic book superhero movie like this before. He had to convince all of you to believe that this could happen. Suspend that disbelief, or else he knew he would get unintentional laughs from the audience the second the actor put on a bat costume or went out to fight a Joker looking like Jack Nicholson. And he was absolutely right. And the linchpin to this universe that he created of Gotham City came when he made the casting choice of Michael Keaton to play, not Batman, but to play Bruce Wayne. He said it's all about Bruce Wayne. If we're going to do this for real, we've got to get audiences to believe that here's a guy so obsessed, driven to the point of being psychotic, that yes, he would put on a bat suit. I believe that. He would go out and do it and chase a guy like the Joker. And he was absolutely right. That vision truly worked. And to this day, I contend, I don't care what comic book or genre movie you go to, you can still see Tim Burton's vision echoing in there. You can still see Anton Furst's design influence permeating all these other films. You can still hear Danny Elfman's haunting score in other scores. Its influence was huge. It was revolutionary. And now, so many years later, to see a genius like Christopher Nolan return the dignity of The Dark Knight to Batman, and in doing so saying, okay, this is going to be real. I want everybody to believe in Bruce Wayne, to believe the Joker could be real, to believe Gotham City could be real, to believe all this crazy, wacky technology could be real. And in my perspective, what Chris Nolan has done in order to do that was to find a guy like Christian Bale and work with Christian Bale, and you follow him on a lost horizon journey of somebody who was traumatized as a child, and you really truly believe in Bruce Wayne and his journey through life. How do you make everyone believe in the Joker? He's convinced us the Joker is a modern-day terrorist, somebody who places no value whatsoever on human life, not man, woman, child, or his own. In a world that's no longer black and white comic booky, no longer about good versus evil, but we live in a world that's gray, that's order versus chaos. That's a world a Batman and a Joker could truly live in today. Lastly, well, not lastly, I almost forgot, Gotham City. He didn't shoot Gotham City in New York. He picked Chicago. You take two iconic buildings out of the skyline of Chicago, and most people around the world cannot identify that city. They could believe that truly is Gotham City. Had it shot in New York, I contend the first time you see the Statue of Liberty or Times Square, boom, that's New York, that's not Gotham City. The suspension of disbelief is broken. But how do you convince everybody all this technology is real? Only a genius could figure that out. You hire Morgan Freeman to tell him it's real. My God, if Morgan Freeman says it, it's got to be true. Incredible.
He was the president in Deep Impact.
And he was God.